And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this week's edition of Trick Tips. My name is Andre Hengshow, but you can call me Gretorp, and this is where we learn to be a better player. Now, last week we learned worker AI and how to micro that, but this week we're going to work on something a little bit different than the past weeks. It's just looking at the AI. How do we move when we actually tell something to attack? How can we adjust it so that we can be a little bit more optimal? Let's go ahead and find it out right now. So what are we trying to accomplish in this week's edition of Trick Tips? Well, AI really refers to just how units move. So it doesn't matter if you're Terran, Zerg, or Protoss. It's going to work for all the races. Now, what we're trying to accomplish, moving a little bit better. Making sure the units are maybe converging to a point, or they're spreading out, they're keeping their distance, not getting so prone to those fungal growths or those spells, EMPs, whatever it might be. These are all really, really important in that, they're going to make you a better player. They're going to keep your units alive more often. You're going to be putting out more damage, and we're going to find out how to do this right now. Let's go ahead and step into game. Alright, I'm over here in the unit tester yet again, and we're going to just look very closely on how these units move. So I'm going to do move command and attack command. As you can see, I move from, all different regions, and they're going in formation. I can actually spread them out. Let's go ahead and just spread them out in a line now. And we're going to see how they actually move. And it's going to be very apparent that they move in unison. See, I tell them to go up, I tell them to go right, and they're all doing a good job. I'm going to patrol, and you can see they're going in that single line relative to the position they're supposed to be in. That's great. But now I'm going to add something a little bit different. I'm going to put this Marauder over here. Now, as soon as I do this, I can still go in unison. I can still go as a team. But now if I go anywhere in between these units, in just about this region, instead of going in formation, they go in convergence. So watch, I'm going to just click this, and you can see all of them are trying to go into this direct position. Now that's really important, because a lot of times when you're up against a mass army, you have to spread all your units out, and then watch. I'm going to tell them to attack this position. And yes, they're already spread out, but you can see they're not converging as fast as they could be. Now, let's go ahead and reset this. I'm going to change it up ever so slightly. I have all my units here, and now I'm just going to put a Marauder all the way behind the units. Now I know sometimes this can be practical, sometimes this can't, but just think, if you have an SCV out on the middle of the map, you can definitely do this, any unit. And now, instead of moving in formation, they're going to converge to the target, and you can see they're starting to start that line immediately, just maximizing the potential. This is really important in any of these situations where you're preparing for the battle. You want all your units to be attacking, and you don't want them to be, just, a huge line all the way to the top and then finally converging, waiting for the AI. No, because let's say we have a line that is 10 times longer. I'm against only a Thor. Well, I want all these units to be attacking that Thor immediately, so I want to converge into things. So we want that extra unit over here on the side. That's the power of convergence, and it really shows you the different AI among ground units. Alright, so that was long-winded. Let me go ahead and explain it as, simple as possible. Let's say we have a group of units. Place them wherever you want. You're going to draw a box around them, okay? And that box is going to be where they converge inside or they don't converge outside. So that means if you tell them to move outside of that box, they're going to move in uniform positions. But if you tell them to move inside that box, they're going to converge. That's very important in those big battles when you want your units converging, or sometimes you don't. You got to choose when you want it and when you don't. And that's why units out on the map are so important. Overlords can be used, SCVs can be used, probes can be used. All of these units can be used for defensive purposes, for attacking purposes, so that you can just get your units to be a little bit smarter when they're engaging against their opponents. It's really, really important because obviously we want to win the game. And how we do that, we dish out the most damage as possible. Alright, let's go ahead and look at air units. And they actually operate a very different way. We're going to look at the magic box first. Now, what is the magic box? It's basically a box that Blizzard made. It's about that big. It's a square. And all units that are inside of that box will move in uniform. I'm going to show you right now. I move over here, yay! 4 on the top, 1 on the bottom. Okay, let's go ahead and stop that now. I'm going to move it slightly outside of the box. Now watch what happens. They all converge. Now, this is really important because moving like this is going to actually move all these units in uniform. Now you know this. They're going to move them in uniform, but now we have convergence with large openings. Now, a lot of times you don't want to be clumped up. Things like fungal growth, EMP, is a big problem for air, right? Phoenixes, if they EMP you, you're not looking too good. So how do you actually counter that? We want to be spread out, but every time we spread out, we go outside of the magic box and we kind of converge to places, right? If I go over here, they're all converging. So this is a very cool little tip to actually do that was introduced by not only MC, but Mr. Bitter to me. And what you basically do is tell it to converge really far away. So let's say I want to go over here. Well, I'm going to use the mini-map now and tell it to go all the way over to the left-hand side. And you can see they are converging, but they're kind of keeping formation because it takes a long time for them to actually converge. So that way we kind of mimic the uniform movement, even though they're outside of the magic box. So I can even make it such that they're really far away. And this is a great way for hallucinated phoenixes, or even regular phoenixes, to scout. And you can see by the mini-map they're all converging, but it's taking quite a long time. And it's because I'm using these long movements, and fungal growth isn't going to be nearly as effective. Again, it's not the sure way to actually dodge all that stuff, but it definitely helps in your play. So you can see Blizzard has actually implemented a lot of interesting mechanics into their engines to have the AI move in a particular way. We saw how they move in air and how they converge. It's very different than how they converge for ground. The magic box for the ground is you box over all your units and you click anywhere inside of it and then they converge. Outside of it, they don't. When you're in air, it's like the opposite. They have a set box and everything inside of there moves in uniform. Everything outside of there converges. That's really different. But it's important to know both of the ways so that when you're going into the battle, you know which way to actually use it. Do we want to incorporate a converging army, or do we want to be spread out the whole time? A lot of times it's up to the situation. It's up to the game for you to choose what's the best path. Guys, as always, my disclaimer, this is useful, but sometimes it could mess you up. Not gonna lie, there's always situations where you don't want to converge and you end up doing it anyway because you weren't paying attention, or you want to converge but you just didn't do it in time. All these problems exist, but it's up to you guys to choose what's the best way and then execute it properly. It's really difficult. StarCraft is a very complex game, but here at Trick Tips, we're trying to show you it little by little so you can improve your play by leaps and bounds. That being said, that's going to do it for this week's edition of Trick Tips. I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I will catch you next week.